representations of the forces that shape our lives. They're more than symbols for mythology or psychological patterns. They act as a conduit, guiding us towards transformation, growth, and self-understanding. Archetypes help us identify and find a path through the complexities of life.
Welcome, I'm Elise.
And I'm Jess, and this is Spiritual Alchemy,
the podcast where we explore the intersection of science and spirituality
and how it shapes our everyday lives.
So I've used the term archetype a lot, but I went to the dictionary to look it up because I was like, I want to make sure that what I think an archetype is actually what it is. And from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it says the original pattern or model of which all things of the same type are representations or copies.
So
it's still kind of meta.
Yeah.
But the idea that there are personality traits or characteristics that will continue to pop up either consistently in people or you can grow in and out of these archetypes.
Yeah. And, well, psychological archetypes, as defined by my favorite Swiss psychologist, Carl Jung, they're universal patterns or models of personalities, behaviors, and ideas. They exist in the collective consciousness. Let me rephrase that. They exist in the collective unconsciousness, a shared reservoir of human experiences and instincts.
So the four primary archetypes are self, the unification of unconscious and conscious. This word's going to get hard today. Persona, the mask we present to the world that we talked about a lot in our last episode. Shadow, the repressed or hidden aspects of the self. And the animus, am I saying that right? So the inner feminine in men and the inner masculine in women, which I think we're seeing a lot of resurgence of in collective unconscious right now.
Yeah.
That women are being more strong in their divine masculine as we see men becoming more steadfast in their divine feminine, because it is a yin and yang. You have to balance both.
And to define the terms for both, define masculine, divine feminine. And I will also preface this by saying not gender specific. Divine masculine, divine feminine, not gender specific. It's the divine masculine is the protector energy. It is not hunter chaser. It is provider. It is protector. It is supportive. The divine feminine is also supportive, but soft. It is the nurturing and creative and expressive. Like, I would say, like, divine feminine to me feels more like whimsical and free, and the divine masculine feels more grounded and rooted. And I go back to the imagery of the tree of as above, so below, the branches and the roots. I feel like the divine feminine are your branches and the divine masculine is your roots. Like you said, yin and yang, the balance of the two. And we all have both within us. And it's finding the balance within to help guide you through your journey.
These archetypes are not learned, but are inherited, and they influence thoughts, feelings, and actions, usually unconsciously.
They're predispositions.
Yeah.
They shape how individuals perceive and respond in the world.
I think the first time I heard the word archetypes was when I was studying Greek mythology, because all of your main characters in Greek mythology are, like Hercules is the strong, man, hero. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like Medusa is the witch in the shadows who,
like the siren. You have the lover. You have the it's story structure.
It's
As the
exactly.
writer, it's like you have the archetypes are the players. So I like to think of it as Shakespeare. Shakespeare has the fool. Shakespeare has the wise old man, the wisdom. It has the nurse, the caregiver. It has the young love, the the like an Aphrodite type character that's very like loving and free, and like the beauty, the young beauty.
Yes. So it's
and our hero.
storytelling. It's storytelling at its base. And
it's a blueprint.
It is. And I think once you understand archetypes, you can start seeing it how it pops up in your own life and who is filling what role, or what role are you filling for other people.
Yeah.
It's fluid. It changes.
You can also see how it links to concepts in divinity. So looking at the Bible, looking at other religious texts, like you can see, I mean, even in, like you said, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, Eastern mythology, just so much of that is based in these archetypes. Spiritual seeking and transcendent experiences. So moving from the traits of one archetype to another. They represent fundamental human experience. And
so those are the archetypes as far as
Carl Jung.
But then there's also spiritual archetypes, which was very fun to dive into because I've never actually like researched this or understood this. So we have the mystic, seeking divine union, inner peace, detachment from material world. The saint embodies compassion and spiritual service. The hermit retreats for inner wisdom and insight. Prophet, truth speaker, disruptor of illusion. And so funny because the one that I got is, I did not write down, the shaman. And I would probably say the shaman and the alchemist are interchangeable. The walker between worlds, bridges physical and spiritual realms, and like brings it all together.
Yeah. So from the hero within and the awakening heroes.
Yeah. So this is where I looked it up. It's by Carol Pearson. And I found this on Psychology Today, which, shout out to if you are looking for a therapist and you don't know where to start. Psychology Today is a wonderful free website that allows you to view mental health professionals in your city or town. And they usually list what insurances they take if that's something important to you, and they list their specialties.
That's
so
awesome.
Whether it's like family behavioral therapy or trauma, it's usually all listed. So shout out to Psychology Today.
Shout out.
And also, this is where I got my research from. Thanks.
Yay. So how these archetypes shape our inner worlds. So personality influence. Archetypes contribute to personality formation and influence of self-perception and interactions with others. And you wrote this little note
that you can't just blame everything on your astrology sun sign. And I think that's like modern day astrology, people who are just like scratching the surface of spiritual alchemy. Like, it's so much more than that, especially as far as astrology. It's your whole chart. You got a whole chart. And on top of that, 40% is probably your inner child wound. 60% is you're a warrior fighting for your life. You got a coffee addiction and you're not sleeping enough. Like, it's so much more.
Stop calling me out, Elise.
It's so much more than just your sun sign. Because we live in LA. So like, you go out to a bar, within 30 seconds, you're hearing somebody talk about astrology. And they're like, yeah, I'm a Capricorn. And you're like, that's not.
I'm sorry, you would never actually hear a Capricorn talk about being a Capricorn.
I picked a safe sign that would never say that because I know Capricorns wouldn't say that. But it's just.
It's always, I'm a Leo. Sorry.
So, yeah, calling out the Leo. So that's that.
Yeah. So personality influence, behavioral guidance. They provide a framework for understanding and navigating complex situations, shaping instinctive reactions and tendencies.
Yes. So archetypes give you titles to call certain attributes of yourself a particular thing, right? The saboteur is someone who self-sabotages, and the lover is the one who you might give your love away to freely. So we talk about identifying them. These are actually words that you can identify and say, hey, this is part of my characteristics that is the saboteur, and this is my characteristic that is the lover. And once you understand archetypes, you understand that some of them don't go together. The saboteur and the lover, they don't go together.
No.
You can't self-sabotage and love with your full chest. It doesn't work.
No.
Sorry, I'm really calling you out today.
I was like,
Key.
T, because you can't. No, it's not that you can't. It's that you will not be successful if you try. If you are constantly trying to love with your full chest and self-sabotaging, accepting that love, or vice versa,
It's gonna be hard.
yeah. So symbolic expression, they manifest in dreams. These archetypes, myths, fairy tales, religious narratives, art, and everyday experiences. Everything that we just mentioned. It's a symbolic language. Like I love to say, you love to say like life's patterns. I like to say life's full of symbols.
Yeah.
Everything is symbolic of something. It's representative,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
Just as the spider is symbolic of the hard worker and master of their craft. Rose is symbol of beauty and love.
Right.
It's all these things in our lives have symbols, so do these archetypes. Self-discovery and growth, exploring and integrating archetypes can provide insights to motivations, fears, and desires.
Right. Like maybe you need to be more of a warrior.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you need to fight for yourself a little bit more, or others.
Mm-hmm.
Bridging the conscious and the unconscious, rooted in collective unconsciousness, and facilitating individualization. So, engaging with archetypes specifically influences Jung's concept of individualization and the process of integrating consciousness and unconsciousness aspects of the psyche to achieve wholeness.
Right. And truly, I'm gonna preach it until I'm gone. It's being true to you.
Mm-hmm.
Stop being everyone's everything. You don't have to be. No one's asking you to do that. If you are doing that, it's probably you doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be everyone's everything. You shouldn't be. You should be your own everything.
Yeah. You got to show up for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, examples of common archetypes include on the psychological scale, we have the hero, the shadow, the anima, the animus, the self, the persona, the sage, the trickster, the child, the mother or the great mother, the father, the explorer, the rebel, the creator, the jester, the lover, the caregiver, and the orphan.
There you go. That's everything you need to write a good story.
There you go. Like, write all those characters, you got yourself a book. Spiritual, you've got the mystic, the hermit, the saint, the shaman, and the prophet, as you so aforementioned. In essence, these archetypes shape our inner world. So they provide these universal patterns, giving perceptions, thoughts, and reactions. They connect us to the collective unconscious, offering access to shared human wisdom and experience. And they reveal hidden aspects, helping us to understand motivations, desires, behaviors. They also promote personal growth and transformation, guiding us on the journey to self-discovery.
Mm-hmm. I think it's more. I'll go back and say it again. It's like a concrete term to explain maybe a lot of feelings or a lot of experiences that you've been through,
Mhm.
right? So you are the explorer if you've moved a lot and you jump friend groups a lot, or you are going through a lot of career changes. I would categorize you as an explorer.
Mm.
And I think that covers everything I just said, you know?
Yeah. You also kind of touched on something just now that I think very specifically something that everybody should look at is their inner child. Because your inner child holds on to and represents a lot of emotional wounds. So it's vulnerable, it's the emotional aspects of ourselves, particularly rooted in childhood experience.
Your world, your understanding of the world happens between birth to about 7 years old.
Yeah.
And then that's the truth that you carry as your frontal lobe develops, as you get older.
Yeah.
And it isn't until you get to a more steadfast place in your adult life where you can look back, and I call it reparenting yourself, and not shaming the people that raised you or shaming where you came from, but being able to truly look back at little you and be like, okay, what should I have been given? And what can I give back to myself? Because your inner child, you don't ever leave your inner child behind.
Mm-mm.
They just get real quiet.
Yeah. Well, it's not even that they get quiet. I think it's that we like sometimes we get so caught in the present and the future that we forget to look back at the past, because through the lens of looking in the past, sometimes we can see the future a lot clearer, because we can get rid of the limiting beliefs that are holding us back to the
Mm-hmm.
past, finding those threads and pulling at them till we get to the root, and then we can just untie the knot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an emotional reservoir.
Mm-hmm. I say that if you ever have a big reaction to something small, chances are it's your inner child screaming, and they've just grabbed the mic. And sometimes you just gotta let your inner child scream.
Yeah.
Because maybe you didn't get to scream as a child. Maybe you were consistently silenced and told to be seen and not heard. And so now you feel this repression where you can't express yourself, you can't state your needs, you can't say how you're feeling, because your first 7 years of life was embedded in this idea that you can't express your feelings. And maybe you learn that even when you express your feelings, your needs are not met.
Well, speaking of expressing feelings, you had brought this up a while ago, but it reminds me a lot of like getting back to what you loved as a kid. I think this is a very common trend on TikTok, Instagram, like all the social media right now, is that I see a lot of, specifically the girlies, like the girls, getting back to the things that brought them joy as kids, like doing craft nights or like
paint nights. You hosted a paint night like a week and a half ago.
Yeah. I'm like, I just love like getting with my friends and doing crafts and watching movies that we loved like when we were younger. And it's just like this nostalgia, but I mean, that's like one thing that we do. But you brought up the concept of like climbing a tree. If you liked climbing a tree when you were a kid, why would you not want to do it as an adult? If you liked running barefoot in the grass, why would you not want to go barefoot? If you liked, a certain sport or a certain activity when you were younger, why not do it as an adult? Why do we grow out of these things that brought us so much joy as kids when we were young, innocent? And there's this archetype, the innocent child. And it's this child that seeks just pure joy. And I would say it is the not just the inner child, but the innocent child is the one that is not bothered by the conditions of the society around them. When you heal your inner child, you get to, it's like this sense of freedom, like that. Just think about kids who run around, just like not a care in the world. They don't know anything. That, it's like you think to what some adults would say is like, oh, they haven't been exposed to the cruelty of the world just yet. And it's like, I would not wish that on.
It's pure joy and pure creativity.
Imagination, believing in magic.
And your sense of joy and creativity can be reignited by getting to know your inner child a little more.
Yeah, it's foundation for healing.
Oh, so good. Just give your inner child a snack, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Just let them have that box mac and cheese.
Oh, yeah. Listen, and the thing about the inner child as well is that it does have a big influence on your relationships.
Right. And those built-in anxieties.
Yeah. And how we show up in friendships, relationships, romantic relationships, family, like familial relationships,
your emotional transactions with people every day in the world. I mean, it's all in the childhood.
It is.
12 years of therapy here, and I was like, no, it's just my angry inner teen. And then I was like, they're like, let's go back, and I was like, no. And then we did, and I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. How does the inner child represent or heal emotional wounds?
It's the unmet needs in your childhood. And I think that's what's so cool about living in 2025 is getting to watch so many people my age. I'm a aunt it, it's coined as the gentle parenting, but it's making space for children to be loud, and adults are actually listening this time around. Like, what do you need? Do you need to be hugged? Do you need to be physically soothed? Do you want alone time? Do you, you're screaming because you're still hungry? Maybe they need something else to eat. Like, I remember screaming for food because I was hungry, and then I was told, no, 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 we're done with dinner. Food's done. How sad. Like, just give me another freaking piece of toast.
Yeah.
It's those little things that if you can pinpoint in your childhood, those are your unmet needs in your adult life. What are you not giving yourself? And is it actually just what you were conditioned to tell yourself as a child? It's so wild to redo this work. And it's consciously meeting the needs of yourself, which means being very present.
Giving yourself a lot of self-compassion and a lot of self-love.
And I do this with one of my best friends, and I'm going to share it with the world, is, those days where you're talking bad to yourself, I always say to her, I go, talk nice to my best friend. Talk to yourself like you would your best friend. So if you find yourself on this loop of negativity and just bringing yourself down, think about how would your best friend talk to you in that moment, and that's when you need to change the voice in your head.
I mean, the negative beliefs will arise when you're
that voice,
because that all of those things that you're trying to give yourself love for, maybe you're having a bad hair day, or maybe you just don't feel like good in your body, and you're focusing so much on the negative. That's a challenge and a negative belief that arises.
You know what I call those?
What?
I call those hand-me-down thoughts. They're hand-me-down thoughts. Who told you to feel that way? Not return to sender. It's not mine. It's a hand-me-down thought. You can take it back.
Yeah.
If it's generational trauma, a learned, context from your childhood, a hand-me-down thought.
Yeah. And in turn, pushing those negative thoughts away will help build resilience to them. You'll be able to pass them down the river. I love that meditation analogy of like, it's thoughts floating down a river. Let those negative thoughts float by, and you will see them float down and go away. And it helps you reconnect with that inner child and bring forward that joy, bring forward that love, bring forward that creative energy.
Right. And I find a lot, because we live in a beautiful city, and I find people are always like, wow, you moved to a new city and you met all these people. And I was like, because I just did things that my inner child loved. I moved to LA, and I knew I loved singing in a choir. What's one of the first things I did when the restrictions from COVID were lifted? I joined a choir. And I met so many people, which have led to more opportunities for singing and singing with people. I went to group workout classes, even though that's not really my thing, but I liked going to dance classes, and I knew people who did fitness, and that's how I met. Like, it's just, it allows you to really tap in.
It really does. Getting back to what you love.
So how does the saboteur archetype show up in self-sabotage, and what purpose does it serve?
So the saboteur archetype is the self-sabotage. It manifests in negative mental patterns. It will undermine your performance and your well-being. So it serves as this mechanism that activates whenever an opportunity to empower yourself or others arises, because it's driven by the ego, and it's leading you to blocks. Like, it's that, I think of the imagery of like a trickster taking you down the path, being like, come with me, I have gold down at the end of this path. And then you get to the end of the path, they're like, I thought you said you had gold. And they said, nope, just kidding, bye.
I mean, I said it in the last episode. Self-sabotaging is your brain's way of protecting and predicting the outcome. Because it's safer to know how it's going to end. So what do? You self-sabotage, because you're like, well, then I know how it's going to end. There's no gold at the end of that path. I knew that all along.
I think it's so much easier too to recognize self-sabotage in others than it is to recognize it in yourself. Every time I have someone that I'm friends with or something, like I see them self-sabotaging, I see them making the bad choices. I can see it, and sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, did you see what was happening there?" But it's so hard to take that mirror and look at ourselves and be like, "Where am I self-sabotaging?"
So another way of flipping the script, my partner says to me when we, look at our friends who may be self-sabotaging, you can't say it to them because it's easy to see, but it's very hard to confront in somebody you love so much. We go, they love it. You may be self-sabotaging because you love it. You may be showing up late to work every day because you don't like your job and you like being late because then it gives you something to complain about, and you're actually planting the seeds to get fired because deep down you want to be fired because you don't want to be working that job. You don't want to actually be there. I mean, it's all there. So if you're doing it over and over again, you're doing it because you love it.
There's a fear of success.
Yes.
Could also be a fear of failure, setting yourself up for failure so that you don't have to worry about not succeeding. Because success can be scary sometimes.
Well, because every time you level up, there's more responsibility. So sometimes it's comfier. It's comfier to just stay on this level.
Yeah.
And then you become a puppet master. The control, the manipulation, the ability to manipulate others or preventing others from growth.
Or playing the victim mentality with self-sabotagers. Oh, I set myself up to fail. Now look at me fail. Oh, woe is me.
Don't give your power away.
No, never. So protecting self-worth, keeping us in comfort zones, releasing trauma. This is the purpose of the saboteur. The process is the ego comes in and says, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to keep you in the comfort zone, and you have to break out of that cycle to move on.
I had a therapist once tell me that the saboteur voice in your head will convince you that you're hiding in a castle, and really you're in a dark, damp cave. But that self-sabotage voice will be like, no, this is great. This relationship that you're in where they don't pay you any mind and they're not giving you the love that you give to them. You're a princess in a fairy tale. And you're like, no, this is awful.
Yeah.
This is terrible.
Yeah. I mean, there's ways to outwit the saboteur. So you just have to recognize your patterns and then be smarter about your approach.
Ready?
No.
Everyone repeat after me. Name it to tame it. You got to name it to tame it.
Study and identify. Study yourself. Study your patterns. See what keeps coming up. Repeated patterns are our greatest teacher. Because if it keeps coming up, it's probably something you need to deal with. Identify what the pattern is, and then question. Discredit
it.
Shift your focus. So redirect towards the opposite. What if this relationship worked out? What if my business was successful? Focus on the positive of it. And it can be things as simple as maybe you're starting a business. I had one new customer today. That is fantastic. That's one more than I had yesterday.
Energy goes where energy flows.
Exactly. So shift the focus, practice self-compassion. We talked about that. And embrace the sage mindset.
I love that.
So develop a more positive and resourceful mindset that can counter the saboteur's negativity.
So all of this, so we've got all of our archetypes, but what does it mean to really embody or heal the victim archetype? Because I feel like that's the easiest one to fall back on. And we're all victims.
And it's connected to the saboteur.
Truly.
Yeah. So the victim archetype, without bypassing real trauma, means recognizing and processing the impact of past wounds while actively reclaiming your agency and moving towards a healthier relationship with your experiences.
Right.
So victim is not victim mentality. It is not, oh, I'm the victim. The victim archetype is acknowledging and being like, hey, this happened to me. I have a wound. I've been hurt. I need to heal it. And I'm moving in that direction. The victim in this sense is not the same as like the victim of I'm playing the victim or I'm playing at being a victim. It is truly, and it's what I said last episode where it's like, it's okay to be like, I'm going through this thing, this trauma, and I'm maybe sabotaging and maybe I'm doing this. But it's okay for me to also say that I'm not the only person who is an active member of this situation.
Owning it all.
And I will use the example of specific relationships that I've been in. It's okay for me to be like, look at this girl. She was young. She was in love. She made these mistakes. She was naive. But there was also a person on the other end of that relationship who took advantage of the naivety, who took advantage of the unconditional love, who used that. And like that is being the victim of that abuse. But it's okay to acknowledge that and then say, okay, this happened to me and that was shitty and it shouldn't have happened, but I'm going to heal it and I'm going to move on from it. And so you want to validate the past, validate what happened. You want to allow yourself to feel the emotions and go through it. You want to avoid spiritually bypassing. So understanding the victim archetype as a response. So it's a survival mechanism.
Of course. Your nervous system is just reminding you of what happened in the past.
Yeah. The key is not to become a victim to the victim mentality. The key is not to embody the victim so much that then that overtakes.
Right. And this is also a lesson that I've had to learn. If you learned that power equals punishment, you probably learned in your childhood, if that's your truth, it makes sense that agency and standing in your power feels unsafe. If you spoke out loud and said, I need this, and it was not met, then your truth is power equals punishment. If I stand in what I need, it will not be met. So what do? We silence ourselves and we shove down our needs.
You shift the focus from taking responsibility to blaming. And we need to flip that. Shift it from blaming to taking responsibility.
It's so hard. And it's constant practice.
And you have to find your personal power within that. Reclaim what was yours. Again, we come back to self-compassion, support, and engaging in practices like mindfulness, yoga, journaling, meditation to help you reconnect and heal.
Yes. It's all about bringing it back. The healing process. You are a wounded warrior. You're not broken. You're not in shattered pieces. You're just a wounded warrior.
I feel like we have covered so much.
We really have.
Yeah. And there's so much more that we still want to cover. To be conscious of time, we will pause here on our discussion of archetypes, and we invite you to join us next week.
Come on back next week to discuss part 2 of exploring archetypes.
We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us today. We're so glad you were here.
For more information on our episodes and to connect with us on social media,
follow us at Spiritual Alchemy Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Stay golden!